Coin traders, how's it going? Oh, what is up? Thanks for joining me for the show, looking at Algorand ALGO on that ticker. Has been a little bit of time, so excited to be jumping back into this chart. A lot of things to talk about, and if you have been following me here over on Twitter, we have posted several chart updates talking about several things for support, resistance, trends, things like that. So definitely make sure you are dropping me a follow here over on Twitter or X at coin_trades is the handle. Chat with you over there about all things Algorand. Now, since it has been a little bit since we have covered Algorand, I want to actually zoom out and look at the longer picture here with the weekly chart, specifically talk about a few good things and bad things, but overall still in a nice weekly uptrend here. And we are looking at weekly higher highs and higher lows with the rest of the crypto space. So set our low back in the fall, set our high that did top out around 25.32, pulled back, found support, very nice support on the 26 weekly EMA, before running up to the current trend high set at 32.96. Wow, pretty good for Algorand now, pulling back and trying to find weekly closing support on top of this 12-period EMA. So if we do end up actually seeing a little bit of pullback below that, we would be looking at kicking off the 26 and 50-period EMAs right now, which still would be a pretty good sign. So especially after having a very long bear market here, finally finding enough of an uptrend to break this is still a little bit of a good sign for Algorand to continue a longer term uptrend. So as long as bulls do hold these supports, and specifically for supports, we needed to hold the 26 and 50 because otherwise we would still see a rollover and a maintaining of a longer term downtrend. So if we do hold these levels and maintain them as support, we would be looking at a nice, finally a bullish complete flip. So do need to see those back test this, which is typically what we see after we do have a very nice run up. Back test confirm this level as a very nice support, especially after getting a nice bullish flip. So in a bearish formation, get this bullish flip, pull back, see a very nice back test, and then follow through to the upside. That's exactly what we need to see with a lot of volume down here to continue this. So it would be extremely nice to see a continued uptrend, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, and then now putting in the next higher high on top of this 32.96 cent level. The thing right now about this weekly chart still is that if we actually zoom out here and look at the support levels before this FTX crash here back in November of 2022, we're still looking at maintaining closing level of resistance on that, which is pretty much right around the 28 cent level. So despite getting an uptrend with price breaking that big point of support, finally flushed and then flipped into a huge point of resistance right now. So very normal to think that we would see a run up and confirm this as a resistance point for the close on the weekly before having a nice back test for about a month or so right now, confirming the current EMAs as that nice supportive level. But in terms of support to the downside, looking at a big one right now, which pretty much comes in right around the 23 cent level. Below that, we would be looking at a technical target of about 20.15 cents, which also correlates right around where the 26 and 50 EMAs are right now. So we could still expect potentially right now a pullback down to about the 20 to 21 cent level to confirm those levels as support. Potentially could see a wicking down below that as long as we do maintain weekly closing support on top of that level. Seems extremely likely right now, in my opinion, especially with the cool down and pullback of a lot of cryptos. And also if we do take a look at Bitcoin right now on this weekly setup as well, despite being in a daily consolidation pattern that we can see is still playing out very nicely on this weekly. We know that we're extremely overextended. You can see how much the RSI has just been getting overbought, but we also know that a lot of bullish things have been happening, which is why the hype and euphoria are still maintaining strong right now. And also, so if we do see a pullback, we would likely see Bitcoin retracing probably to about 50 so or level, basically confirming not only the 12 period, but we haven't had a back test of the 26 in a while. But obviously, first target would in fact be the 12 period EMA on that, which actually would allow this RSI to cool down if we do get longer term weekly consolidation happening right now, which historically is what we have seen between the halving event and also about the late summer or so. Obviously, no predictions for that, but we know that Bitcoin has to pull back, which typically means that altcoins do get hammered in that instance. So for Algorand right now, that is one of the things that we're looking at in terms of a pullback. So especially since we have capped out at max volume right now, and so it hasn't necessarily been that much, but we've already hit peak volume. And so despite having a nice increasing volume and a very nice sustained 6 weeks here of bullish upside, we know that we have topped out, especially seeing this shorter volume that has come in at 115 million. Signups right now for governance are still in effect, so a lot of people do think that that does have an impact on crypto here for Algorand. But personally, I never see enough of an impact to actually justify that type of claim. And especially as rewards get less and less, we see that less and less of an impact right now for a buying pressure. And if anything, we actually see rewards getting sold off, which does increase selling pressure right now. So do want to pull up the weekly RSI right now. You can see that several times we did get overbought and overextended just barely here twice. So overextended, pullback, overextended right now, pullback. So that's all normal, especially as we do look at these oscillators right now, which do correlate one bar over from when we do see our high coming in for this trend. So on this weekly, do want to zoom out because as we can see, every single time we did get overbought on this weekly, we actually did experience pullback. So overbought. And then if we actually look at the chart here, go ahead and switch back. You can see just how we're looking at pullbacks on each of these instances. Obviously, in the hype of the bull market grew a lot more. So we did see a little bit more of overbought pressure. But nonetheless, we know that we've only seen this a handful of times out of Algorand, and both times it did lead to a pullback. Now, we've already seen the pullback start to happen, and in fact, we have seen a pullback right now from the high to current prices of about 30% or so from Fibonacci's on the low of this trend. That wasn't it. Let's try it again. So from Fibonacci's on the low of this trend, we are looking at a pullback right now, dipping below the 50%, so that is pretty significant. And so like we talked about with targets down to the 20-cent level, we would be needing to hold a 61.8, which is right now at 21.78. That would be a very nice downside target to be able to maintain. But below that, we would be dipping and effectively holding just above that, which is another reason why we're calling this as a very nice and important downside target on a technical level. So if we can get down to that level and see a very nice bounce and continuation off of that, that's going to be a much stronger move than if we actually sit sideways for a little bit and consolidate longer. So one of the big things we are going to be looking at here in the coming months is just the amount of bearish selling volume, because as we can see on this first pullback, one of the reasons why it was so strong despite holding this 26-period EMA is that we actually had a huge taper off in a longer selling pressure. So as long as we can see that, and so far we have been successful, especially since we did just close the recent weekly candle, we are seeing selling pressure start to taper off, which is what you want to see in strong market conditions when we do see pullbacks like this. Now, one thing I forgot to look at since we were talking about Fibonacci's is the amount of retracement on the first initial move. So we did get down to 61.8, which is the very nice supportive level. So 61.8 was 15.5 cents. Did get down to a low of 14.84, but saw a very nice buy up from the bulls, closing that weekly at 16.41. So if we can see the same type of retracement right now out of the bulls on the current move, then that's exactly what's going to lead to a very nice bullish continuation, especially if we can hold 61.8 right now at about 21.77, which, like we talked about, is a very nice supportive level in between these EMAs and would actually be a very nice thing to allow us to get our nice bullish cross, having the 12 on top for the weekly EMA, 26, and then finally the 50 on bottom, setting up for a very nice bullish continuation, especially since we have been in such a bearish trend on these EMAs the whole last couple of years in the bear market. So now do have to flip over and talk about the daily chart, since we have been talking about a pullback on the weekly. So right now have still been holding an extremely nice, important level of support. And it's actually kind of more of a zone right now, but effectively huge support right now coming in at 22.11. Just above that, though, we're looking at support coming in at 22.89. So we know that this whole zone is going to be extremely supportive in the 22-cent level. So we have very nice closing support, a lot of downside shadows on this level. So downside target and still holding higher lows on this, but also have lower highs coming in. So daily right now is still kind of looking a little bit bearish because we are in fact below these EMAs and confirming them as this resistive point, which does mean right now we are going to likely anticipate a little bit more of that bearish cross continuation to be happening, especially due to this low volume that we have. Technical supports to the downside, though, still coming in right around the 20-cent level zone as well. So if we do, in fact, break through and below 22.11, this is going to be the big zone that we are targeting, which is the zone on the weekly that we would need to hold in order to see further continuation without longer-term pullbacks. We do, in fact, turn on VPVR, volume profile visible range for volume based on price charts. You can see just how much the massive volume does extend down to this level at about 20 cents. So we know that that's another reason why we would expect a little bit more support around this level if, in fact, we do get continuation and a pullback of this chart. So personally, I think right now, over the next couple of weeks, that's what we expect, especially since we are anticipating the Bitcoin halving in about 2 weeks from today. And otherwise, I can't just see enough reasons why we would get bullish continuation and an expectation that we're just going to rally from here. I do think the longer we do confirm and see these lower shadows in this overall pattern, though, the better we are set up to actually see potential for some higher highs on this chart. So that's why we are eyeing this big zone so much. Now, overall, we know that the last time that we actually broke below the 50-period EMA and held it actually took about a month to actually see the next leg, so about 25, 26 days. So if we actually look from current levels to 25, 26 days, we'd be looking about end of the month here for Algorand to actually see some time. So even if we do stay below 50-period and even some of the 12 and 26 here, to the end of the month before actually seeing the next retrace wouldn't be that bad of a scenario and a setup. So we are still anticipating about 2 to 3 weeks here, especially with the Bitcoin halving, leading us to think that not much is going to be happening with crypto here. So Algorand typically isn't necessarily as strong of a name to maintain these trends on the daily, which is why we see so much of losing the exponentials, even despite the fact that we are still in a weekly bullish uptrend. Big resistance point, though, up overhead is going to be coming in right at the 24-cent level. This is also going to be held by the 50-period like we talked about, but also looking left, this big point of resistance here on the previous uptrend. So since we broke below that, we are going to reclaim that as a resistance point again. So if we can break above that and break above these EMAs, then that's a very strong case to see Algorand run up and actually test the next big resistance point up overhead, which would be the 28-cent resistance point, which is, like we talked about on the weekly, a huge, huge, huge resistance point. And if we can maintain a close on top of that on the weekly, that would be a very big sign of growth up ahead. Extremely speculative right now. Path of most likelihood right now is still maintaining 24 cents. So we do need to see bulls actually have strong volume come in for that and actually flip that into the next level of support before running up again. So no calls for 28 cent yet, just because 24 is going to be such a big relevant level right now, and also down to the 22 cent support level as well. But yeah, otherwise that is going to go ahead and do it for the show and updates right now for the price of Algorand. Let me know any questions, comments, issues, disagreements, all that stuff down below. Do love getting back to each and every one of you. Otherwise, if you did enjoy the show today, please hit the thumbs up, like, and subscribe if you have not done so just yet. Also, don't forget to drop me a follow over on Twitter or X at coin_trades. Do appreciate all the continuous love and support as always. Does mean so much. Stay safe, take care, and I'll catch you back in the next video.